Legend says that in 543 BCE, a rogue Indian prince named Vijaya landed on a mysterious island. The soil was a strange copper-red color. The island was beautiful, but it carried a dark reputation. It was a place of exile. Over the next 2.5 millennia, this tiny teardrop-shaped island would become the most fought-over piece of real estate in the Indian Ocean. Empires would slaughter each other for its spices. Kings would build fortresses in the clouds to escape assassins. And a modern civil war would push the nation to the absolute brink of collapse. This isn't just history. This is a 2,500-year Game of Thrones. Welcome to the epic, turbulent story of Sri Lanka.
Let's look at ancient Sri Lanka. It wasn't just a kingdom, it was an engineering superpower. While Europe was in the Dark Ages, Sri Lankan kings were constructing massive artificial lakes called wewas. These networks moved millions of gallons of water across arid plains, with a slope accuracy of just a few inches per mile. But engineering wasn't their only marvel. They excelled at psychological warfare and ambition. Take King Kashyapa in the 5th century. After murdering his own father by walling him up alive, he knew his brother was coming for revenge. His solution? He fled into the jungle and built a palace on top of Sigiriya, a sheer 600-foot-high volcanic rock. He painted the entire rock face with vibrant murals and carved a massive gateway shaped like a roaring lion. For a brief moment, he ruled from the clouds. But the ultimate source of power on the island wasn't a fortress, it was a tooth. When a relic of the Buddha's tooth was smuggled onto the island inside the hair of a princess, it changed everything. The tooth became the literal crown. If you possessed the tooth, you possessed the divine right to rule. It was stolen, hidden in caves, and fought over for centuries. Today, it rests in Kandy, the island's final royal stronghold. And Kandy would need every bit of that protection, because the Western world had just discovered the smell of cinnamon.
In 1505, a Portuguese fleet blown off course accidentally bumped into Sri Lanka. They realized two things instantly. First, the island was strategically positioned perfectly between east and west trade routes. Second, it grew the best cinnamon on planet Earth. The Portuguese moved in with swords and Bibles, conquering the coastlines. But the interior kingdom of Kandy refused to bow. The Kandian warriors used the dense, malaria-ridden jungles to ambush the invaders, leaving the Portuguese bloodied and frustrated. So, the Kandians tried a dangerous move. They asked another European superpower, the Dutch, for help. The deal? Help us kick out the Portuguese and we'll give you a monopoly on the spice trade. The Dutch agreed. They ran the Portuguese out in 1658, and then looked at the Kandians and said, "Thanks, we'll take it from here." The island had simply traded one master for another. But the final boss arrived in 1796, the British Empire. The British didn't just want spices, they wanted total control. In 1815, using internal betrayals among local chieftains, the British marched into Kandy. They did what no empire before them could. They dissolved the 2,000-year-old Sri Lankan monarchy. They renamed the island Ceylon. They chopped down ancient rainforests. They planted vast fields of tea. To pick it, they imported hundreds of thousands of Tamil laborers from southern India. This altered the island's demographic makeup, creating a ticking time bomb that would explode over a century later.
In 1948, Sri Lanka won its independence from Britain without firing a single shot. It was a peaceful transition. On paper, Ceylon was the envy of Asia. It had high literacy rates, a booming tea economy, and a functional democracy. But beneath the surface, resentment was boiling. The majority population, the Sinhalese, felt that the British had favored the minority Tamils during colonial rule. In 1956, nationalist politicians passed the Sinhala Only Act. Overnight, the Tamil language was stripped of official status. Tamils were pushed out of government jobs and universities. Peaceful protests were met with violence. By 1983, a spark hit the powder keg. A militant rebel group called the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, the Tamil Tigers, ambushed and killed 13 government soldiers.
What followed was Black July, terrifying anti-Tamil riots that left thousands dead and forced many more to flee. The island plunged into a 26-year civil war. This wasn't a minor skirmish. It was a brutal conflict defined by suicide bombings, child soldiers, and merciless military offensives. The world watched as a tropical paradise tore itself apart. The war finally ended in May 2009, in a bloody, controversial military campaign that left the country unified, but deeply traumatized.
If you visit Sri Lanka today, you will see a land of staggering beauty. You can ride the famous blue train through the misty tea fields of Ella, watch wild elephants roam through national parks, or surf the waves of the southern coast. Yet, history is still being written in real time. In 2022, the island made global headlines again when massive, peaceful civilian protests overthrew a corrupt political dynasty during a severe economic crisis. Sri Lankans proved once more that they are not passive bystanders to their own fate. Through ancient floods, European invaders, civil war, and economic collapse, the story of Sri Lanka is not a story of victimhood. It is a masterclass in survival. It is an island that has been broken 1,000 times, yet always finds a way to piece itself back together.
Thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button, drop us a review, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the history that shaped our world. Until then, Ayubawan.